Okay, on the first tape we built the whole stab and elevator complete, and we're basically working on the fuselage now. We want to pick that up. We're back from lunch and we hopefully are ready to get busy on putting this fuselage back together. Or together, not back together. Now on the first tape we made this little assembly, which is a little bit of a deviation from the way the kit is built. Kenny's uncovering, we laid out all the parts. Easy to punch out and identify. And let's see if the double is, make sure they're glued. They always get glued to the table. Okay, we want to dress off all the edges on this once the epoxy is hard before we go on to the next step.
A good start. Yeah, these are nice.
All right, now using this, the T-square, we're referencing of exactly where the center of the wing is relative to the top of the fuselage side. Because what we're going to do is scribe a center line. Now I already drilled a hole exactly where that was, as if it was going into the control horn. Now we want to transpose that line onto a fuselage side. And that gives us a center line to line up the wing. After this is assembled, it's a lot easier to do this now than after it's put together with glue. Take a pen, a normal ballpoint pen apart. I'll try to hold this for you. This is really a two-man operation. Insert the pen in there, and that should be on a wing center line, and just follow right through to where the flaps would end, because that's going to be our alignment for lining up the center of the flaps also. Go at least the length of the flaps. Okay, there you go. Okay, now what we did, we measured how far down the mounts go, and even though we have those little formers, we're not going to trust the formers. We want to get a parallel line that thickness down. And just watch. Let me hold this. Watch when it catches the edge there.
Didn't do it that time.
You put the wrong hole. Ah! Okay, hang on. Good thing we'll show how to correct the mistake. Get some sandpaper. Hey, what did you think? We were perfect or something? Have some credibility in your video. Show the mistakes. If you make a mistake, get out a little sanding block. Then go back to see. I did that when I turned it over. Reference off of the plan. Make sure you're at the right side. And of course, we'll double check them by marrying them up together and seeing that they're both the same.
Okay, so our hole is.
I think it was the second. It was this one here.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right on
now
the
just
money.
turn it over.
Let's
okay.
just leave that in there.
Yeah. See what scientific guys we are, huh?
2 college degrees. Huh?
Yeah. Okay. And just watch when it hits the front. It's going to want to catch. Okay. And go further than you have to. It gives your eye a little reference line. See, a lot of this centers on just getting good center lines on everything, so when you pull out of that wing over, it's like nice and solid. You don't have that jumpity jump. When you see a plane come out and you, oh.
And if you don't do this, you are lost.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely
if you
lost.
just, let me show you something. If you just take this and just randomly, and I've done this when I was young, and just randomly glue this in on an angle, oh man, and just put the wing in the body without having any reference line, almost guarantees you're going to somewhere down the road be pulling out of wing overs like that. Okay?
We got that one right on the money.
Okay, now whatever sticks out over the top we can grind off. Ooh, that's nice. Okay, so now we want to glue that to one side. Let's mix up some 5-minute epoxy. Let's glue one side, then glue the other side, and then pinch the tail and put the formers in. I think that's the easiest way to do this. So we're trying to come up with a way to simulate this as if this was a full-size stunt plane. And some of the things that we've learned along the way. The last 42 years, you think we'd be able to build a fuselage.
It's still hard. That's very hard. Side's glued here.
Okay, now what you want to do is separate it. Pull it apart so we can see if we have a good epoxy. I'll hold this down for you. Just pull it apart. This is what I want. Okay. This is what you want to see. You want to see a solid bead of epoxy. Solid epoxy, solid epoxy. Okay, now look at the other side.
Just a little bit off in a couple places.
And once you get it, you could wipe any excess with a little paper towel with some alcohol.
And let's put it right back down where we had it. line up this blue line.
Referencing off is that line. So we're hopefully going to have the line of the motor mount. The three lines we want to have. We want to have the wing center line, the top of the fuselage, and we'll eventually adjust this line till we get the tail lined up in the 3-axis that it has to be lined up in. But right now, getting the motor mounts parallel to the top of the fuselage side is what we're looking for. And then we want to, as soon as we get it lined up, weight it with anything. Just put a couple pounds of weights on it. A brick is a good thing to have.
That looks.
All right, and now we'll babysit this for 5-10 minutes while we're watching and make sure that none of this moves. Yeah, that'll be good, Ken. Okay, the one side is totally dry. We've checked all the alignment angles. Ken's going to mix up some epoxy again. We're going to coat this side, press them together, make sure we have a good joint, and then with the triangle that we do have here, check that we have the fuselage sides aligned this way, and that the two fuselage sides are, oh, as he knocks it off the table. It happens. And then what we want to do, and it's the critical part of this, is while that's weighted and drying, we want to pull the two sides together to make sure they join up and bow equally. And if not, then we can slide one back and forth. That's why I like to do one at a time this way.
An important tool is a Q-tip. We use a lot of Q-tips in this shop.
Yeah, that's a trick. Go buy 1,000 of them. I wish I had stock in Q-tips.
They're really good for working with CA and smoothing it out. And they're great for epoxy.
That's the most important part of it, is to get the end grain of the plywood. Yeah, you don't want to have a gap in there. This just reminds me, so I was thinking of something when I was watching this, when I was doing composite work. I sent away and got a bunch of videos from this company. I won't mention the name, but the guy comes out in a white jacket, white shoes, diamond rings, Rolex watch, and starts mixing epoxy. You know what? In the real world, he doesn't work. He's the president of the company or
White
something.
T-shirt, Casio watch.
Yeah, $3. Yeah, that thing's gonna go. By the way, when we start finishing, the the pimp ring is gonna go.
Oh well.
The pimp ring's got to go. No more driving a limo either. Okay, get that aligned. Can you see the line from there? If you have to, turn it over on the table, so it's going the other way. This way you can see the line better. Yeah, you got it. Oh my God.
All right.
Jewelry, that thing is going to go too when we start finishing. We're going to strip him down because these things wind up all in your dings in your leading edge and trailing edge.
Okay.
Lose the jewelry. Okay.
Now that looks, let's just tweak this a little bit.
Spread that out a little more. See, by doing a press, you can see any spot that you're missing.
Like right there.
Okay.
And right down here. And we can take a little off in a couple of places.
Okay, and if it's drooling, yeah. That gives you enough working time. And here's another trick. If you're not comfortable doing this or you're not sure about the alignment, use the 45-minute dry stuff. But I still like to do these kind of things where it gives you a little working time. If we were to CA this, yeah, maybe it'd be okay, and I don't think it'd be a strength thing. It just, this way you get a lot of time to do all the alignments, get everything perfect before you're committed. And the main thing we're referencing off is that line that we put on. And all of this, like the extra epoxy back here, before it kicks, you can take alcohol and a Q-tip, wipe it right off so you have a nice, neat joint.
Okay, that looks very good.
Yeah, please, bear with us. We're trying to make a video of really building the plane. This is not a contorted thing where there's no balsa chips on the floor and no sanding dust. And in the real world, this is what it's like building this stuff. It's just messy. At some point in time, you just got to tough it out. Now, see what I want to check. The reason I walk in, I want to make sure. Just hold that there. Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Press it up.
Let's
Put some weights on it and then just double check it again.
I like to put a sanding block or something down to spread the weight out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We're gonna get a couple of bricks off the patio. Brick is just about the right weight. A gallon of dope is good too if you're looking for something. No, we're gonna babysit it here. Don't
just a little bit.
Okay,
Just
well that's
right there.
you know, hey, that's what happens in the real world. No Rolex watches. Let's make the thing work. Trying to make a video where you can get some real life useful information out of, not the fantasy island stuff.
Oh, I think
There
I
you
can
go.
live with that for 5 years.
Okay.
So,
Okay, now obviously the trick here is not, just look down it and see that you have, if it was radically out, if it's only out a 64th of an inch, don't even worry about it.
now that's tweakable. It's even.
See, the way this can be wrong is one can be high, one can be low, but if they marry up like so, and they, when you get to the center, they should be just, then you're in Fat City. That's going to be perfect. Okay, that can dry.
Let me clean it up a little bit.
All right, just get alcohol and a Q-tip, let that dry, and okay, while that's drying, we're going to try to lay out the part of the plane that there's nobody on the planet. Nobody wants to carve this cowling. Believe me, I don't even want to carve it. We're going to lay out the blocks and just try to get it tacked together from the wood that's in the kit. We still haven't dumped all the blocks out to look at, but I want to get the grain going in this direction for that block. There's a center block and this piece. So we can frame that up while this is all drying up. Now the big, I guess this is the big 1-inch block that's in the kit. We need to cut off the front part to make the cowl. And by the way, this is some real nice piece of wood here. I don't know if they're all that good, but that one is a good one. Okay, now we need to have that length. We need to find those 3 blocks. Here's the little fat one that goes in the middle. Look and see how he wants the grain. I guess that's the one that goes up in there. And we need the 2 side ones. You need to cut them out.
Make our cowl, and we need to get this width. So I'm going to make a mark here and transfer this.
Transfer that to both ends of the block and then connect the dots.
Right.
Put that dimension on both ends of the block. Connect the dots. Go over to the saw that piece out. It's just that much less you have to carve. It'll save you a little bit of carving time. Now we just copied the dimensions off of the side. It looks like they want the grain going this way. 2 3/4. Now put the line on first. It's easier if you put that line. Don't reference off the dot, reference off the line. Trace that line in with the T-square. Then you know that's one piece. Okay, cut that piece first and see that it's right before you cut the other one. If it needs to be a little bigger, now what I like to do, and cut the first piece with leave the line on. Leave it a little bigger and then you can dress it off with a sanding block. If you cut it and it's the thickness of the pen line too small, you have to throw this away and make a new piece. There you go. Anytime you have to do this, make one piece first. This way, if you need to make it a little bit bigger, you don't make 2 of them and they're both too small. That looks like it's going to be fine, but if it were a little short in one dimension, this looks a little oversized, in fact, which is good. And it's a little oversized, but we're going to put the nose ring on the front there. So, okay, now just replicate that part up, and then we can glue that. Actually, we can tack that whole cowling up together. The next step while this is drying. See, this is what's always trying to use time management. As one thing is drying, you work on something else. One thing's drying, work on something. If you're just sitting here now, some people would get and glue this together and say, okay, time to watch TV for 2 hours. No, no, no. Find something else to do.
There is our completed Nobler cowl.
Now, I know if you were doing one of these right now, you'd be thinking, It'll look good just like that. Why even radius it off? And you know what? The truth is, when I was a kid, the first Nobler cowl I made, I did it just like this. All I did was just kiss the edges with sandpaper, hogged this all out, went through, the motor fit in, it overheated, the exhaust all got inside. I'm so proud of you now that you're not thinking along those lines. Okay, now we want to tack that all together. Once that's all glued together, we can start laying this out. We need to get those templates that they're in the catalog. That'll be the next thing. Now the first thing I want to do is get Ken to true this up. There's a little bit of a ridge here. Don't change the contour, just get the edges nice and square so we can lay the cowl against that. Those little carbide sanding blocks are real handy for doing that. Nice true edges, because then we're going to try to true the cowl up to fit right in those edges. What's nice about the carbide stuff, it makes nice corners. You have these corners all back cut, you can get right in there.
Have to remember to let.
Okay, while Ken's truing that up, I'm going to try to cut out the templates to start lining up the shapes. Now, a lot of this we can rough out before we actually tack glue it in place. But getting it all nice and true here, getting all these edges 90 degrees, can do that all before we tack glue it in place. Now, just looking at that, looks real good, and we traced out the rough shape for this side. So I guess the first thing we can do is remove all this material, get a number 26 blade, and get this all roughed out. What Ken's going to do, here's the line, is put that same pattern on the front. You basically, even though that's going to have a taper in it, we can remove a lot of the material. We want to try to get rid of all the big material that we don't need while this is in a rough state like that.
Okay, so now we have.
Now just get a brand new number 26 blade and rough off all that material. And if you just work roughly into the line, that gives you one dimension. Everybody loves making a nobler cowl. I think one of our future projects for sure is going to be make another kit and make up one of these as a fiberglass mold. Right now, well, if we didn't have the time, we could make the mold right now. Well, we're not going to do it right now. It's going to be a future project. Stay tuned if you're building a nobler. John Brodeck will have fiberglass cowls someday. Someday. Our next step is we want to mount the motor and install this half of the nose ring. Then that half of the nose ring, we can take the motor out, and that half of the nose ring will line up the other half of the nose ring that we need for the alignment right now. And it would be around at this point, if you wanted to put a little motor offset in, fine. I'd say 1 or 2 degrees would be fine. 0 would probably be fine too, but you'll need more rudder offset and lead out rake. You can see the amount of offset we're going to put in here. This side is tight, this side is a little sloppy by a few thousandths. So it's going out probably 1 or 2 degrees, and we can also move that motor just a little bit. And what we're going to do, we're going to take, we need a little bit of a shim here to shim this out. So what we're going to do is glue this right to a piece of 1/8 inch balsa, and then retrace it out, recut it out so that then we can fine sand the balsa and make a nice connection and get the fit right up here just right. If you had more clearance, you could glue 2 pieces of 1/8 inch, 1 piece, but just to shim this out that this becomes the outer piece of the ring. What we need to do is get a very accurate transposition of where the spinner ring, the outline of the spinner ring, is going to go on this cowling. We can't do that until we glue this in place. And one of the ways I've done this the same way, this is technology from Spitfires, Strega kind of planes. I bolt this up with any number of back plates, shims, props, anything, just to hold that back plate. And then I put a bent up piece of cardboard, that's 5/1000ths, between each side, and that establishes that I have about 10 thousandths of clearance, which will allow me to get some paint in there, some epoxy, some glue. I make sure it's lined up from the front before I glue it. Get it lined up with the ring, and if it's wrong, of course, first you want to do is tack glue it first, and if it's right, then put a real glue seam on it. Just tack it, make sure it's right first, Ken. Kick it off. Okay, now just wait. Take all the shims out. Take that out, and now we should have, if we've done it right, and if it isn't, because it's only temporary, we don't have to worry. Now that looks...
That's close.
It's certainly close enough because we're going to sand and grind that in. Now when you actually do put the spinner on, that'll line that up real well. We have the clearance, and there's nothing worse than when you put the motor back in and then everything's rubbing and chewing itself up and everything. So that eliminates one problem. Now what you want to do, Ken, is take this whole thing apart. Well, first let's make a permanent glue joint there. So that's glued in. And then we want to cut this off with a Zona saw so that the bottom piece is detachable, because the top piece is going to line up the bottom piece once you drop the cowling in. And you can use that, just reverse the situation to hold that in position on the cowling. Okay, just take the whole engine right out. Now, what that's already established is now we can put the cowling block in place and we can cut that nose ring in half, and we know exactly where that nose ring should go. Okay, good. Okay, now what we're going to do is cut this off, drop the cowl block in place, and then we're going to recess this back using this flat surface as our reference point. Alright, you want to get that kind of level because we're going to true that up. Okay, now you can drop the cowl block right in place. And let's see where we line up the ring. Okay, now you see the block is a little bit too wide, so the two choices you have are you can cut back on the ring, you can thin the ring out, or you can just trace it on here and take some of the balsa wood away. Either way, because we want to keep the ring flat. We know the ring is in good alignment.
Well, since we've spaced the ring, we'll take some off the back of the ring.
Okay. Believe it or not, we had to add a little shim to each side, which I wasn't crazy about, but it gave us extra material to work with. Otherwise, this area here would have gotten very thin. Now, you see how much space this is, Ken? We need to remove that amount of material. Where's the little back piece? Just go over to the grindstone, to the sanding block, whatever, and grind it until that's flat.
Okay.
That's a little bit too thick. Now we're using this, which is now the key that's going to line up the top piece. Alright, we're ready to glue that nose ring on, Ken. This looks like it's going to be fine. See where I had to add that little piece of material? I didn't want to make it so thin because what would happen, it would taper thin back here, but it all worked out for the best. And we're going to have plenty of material on it when we actually put the spinner on and then do the final carving. And yeah, just line it up, yeah, tack glue it on. You're all set. The cowling's already glued in place. I already just tack glued it on. Tack it and you're all set. You can permanently glue it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Oh. That's okay.
Now you can take a sanding block once it kicks and make sure it's flat.
Okay.
Just rub it back and forth. See, make sure you have a flat surface there. If you're picking up any high spot, just dust it. And then we'll put it away and we'll pick this up tomorrow.
Great.
We'll be ready to work on that tomorrow morning. It's time. It's time. Okay, as day 2 ends, I look around and see how much we've accomplished in 2 days. I guess it's not too bad. And we'll try to start fresh after a nice cup of coffee, rounding that all in tomorrow, putting the formers in, carving the blocks, and I hope by at least one more day we'll be ready to start the wing. So, see you in the morning. Make sure you have extra coffee. I'm just looking at some old Nobler footage here, waiting for Ken to get here. Come on, Ken. This guy's not on time, I'm telling you. Unbelievable. This is Jim Silhavy's Nobler that was in John Davis's garage the last time we were there visiting him. Still in good shape, and this is the original plane, I think, that won the 64 Nats. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not a real maven of that, but anyway. Some of the other stuff in Jim's garage. Come on, Ken, get here. Bernie Asher's original Aeron. Oh man, I'll tell you. I'm paying him a lot, but he doesn't give me a lot. Now Ken doesn't know it, but while he went out to put a tape in the car, I put a shot of vodka in his coffee, tried to get him to do a little more work.
This is going to be a very, very good
You know,
one.
Jerry Sipper built his Nobler in 15 minutes. I mean, come on. It's taken us 2 days just to get the body this way. All right, first thing we want to do, we want to make that template. I think it's on the other set of plans, so we can get the side view of this traced out and get that radius cut in the front. That'll be the next thing we really want to work on. Okay, we're just trying to get a female template here to work off. We're taking it right off the plans. Now if you cut this piece out, we can lay that on the cowl, and this line is on here so we can reference off the nose ring. Because what we want to do is kind of replicate that nose shape. Whoop, there goes the plans. Okay, what we're trying to do is we've made a paper template off of the plan itself, off of the cowl part. We want to try to get this curve in here marked out so we can rough a lot of this wood off. Now, you might think when you're doing this, the first thing people do is they start carving straight up. No, you have to make that little indentation, that little kerf or whatever you want to call it in there, or you wind up with a really funny shape right back here. It just doesn't blend in. This is what allows you to have the cowl blend. Paper template just allows you to just get it in kind of on the rough side. If anything, leave the line on. Make it a little bigger than it has to be to start with. Now we'll start hacking some of that extra wood away.
Well, we're going to take a coping saw and we're going to cut right around this line. We're just roughing this out now and we'll clean it up later.
Actually, it'll be easier. Go a little bit more and then come from the front end. And we'll do it with a sanding drum. It'll make it a lot easier. Again, it's that part of the plane that nobody wants to make.
I don't want to make it.
I don't even.
This is not my
Come in from the front. There you go. Just. That's a good idea if you have a coping saw too. Get one with fine teeth on the blade. We have one with rough teeth. So okay.
There we go.
That'll just save you an awful lot of hacking and hauling. Now put it over by the plan and see what if we're close.
Looks like a Nobler already.
Yeah, right. Let's see. You got the angle close? Okay.
Yeah, pretty close.
Now what Ken is trying to do is get the curve. There's a little bit of a curve and we're working off the template. And each one, if you take each ice slice a little bit further forward, you'll automatically have a little curve, and we'll get the side view in. Hopefully get the side view in and not go too far.
It's starting to get it.
Yeah, just nice little ice slices, and then go look at the plan, see that we're getting close.
Yeah.
You can see it's easy to do one side, get one side about right, and work your way over to the other side. And if you go real slow, you really won't have a problem. If you want to start working as if there was a spinner on there, you need that little lip. It's that little lip that you really need.
Well, we're sneaking up on our cowl here, and I'm using a tool. It's a brass tube and a piece of the sticky back sandpaper with a cover on it. Hold your sandpaper like that. Keep it loose in your hand. What you want to do is you want to work around this lip and smooth it out and start to work in your contour here. You can keep moving the sandpaper so you always have fresh sandpaper. Your sandpaper unloads, and you don't want to stop in one spot. You stop in one spot, you're digging in and you're making a problem for yourself. So you keep moving and sneak up on this curve.
You want to use one hand like a rotisserie, so you're always moving. If you start sanding here, what you do, you make a flat. If one hand is turning and the other one's turned the other direction, you get almost like a milling machine, nice cuts. And getting that curve in there is, it looks real easy, but to get it really nice, it's a little bit difficult. That's why I can't wait till we have molded cowls. Boy, would that be beautiful. Oh, you could just go to the box, take out a cowl right now. I hear that. Okay, there you go.
Getting there.
All right, now.
I know you're going to try this at home. So the trick is to keep moving, keep going around, working on your curve, kissing the wood. When you get it when you get close, take a piece of sandpaper, double it over, because the sandpaper on one side holds it to your hand. Your hand becomes an orbital sander. Go right around here and polish off wood. Don't sand off wood, polish it off. And use your hands to see where you're not quite right. We got a little high spot over here.
Point is, the more of this you can get done before we pull this off of the fuselage itself, it's a lot easier to get all the joints and contours right now. Then once it's in your hand, it bends, it moves, it squeezes, it's vulnerable. But right now it's kind of rock steady, and you get everything blended in real nice. Now what I want to do at this point, now that'll be okay. Let me just measure it. What I want to do, the filler block here, now see, if I was engineering this, I would have the grain going sideways, but one of the problems is with such a small spinner, all this wood is going to be end grain, and it might not take a nice finish. So what I wanted to do is put this in so the grain is going this way. Let's just make sure we got, yeah. Okay, now trim that off. We can get the filler block in, and then get the top block on, then I can work what I want to do about the rest of this nose construction while you're working on, let's see, he's got this hole and we're ready to start doing that. What I'm trying to do is decide if I want to leave this block in place, and actually I think I am. I'm going to leave this block in place while I'm working the nose. I can put the whole, get the whole contours just the way I want them, then just make it a little bit easier that way. Again, a lot of this stuff I'm trying to see. Yeah, you got it in? See what'll be the most, the easiest way to do this. Alright, make it, if anything, a tight fit, and just sand the last little bit to get it in there.
I'm going to sand it down, not cut.
Now another thing I thought I could do, I'm trying to invent things as I go along, and I think this is one you might want to consider. If I had used little landing gear clips here, that I could put the screws in through the front, put the blind nuts in the back. What I could do now is take the landing gear out and carve and sand that block in, but I'm not going to be able to do that because the gear is permanently mounted. It might be just one thing you want to consider if you don't mind doing the, whatever you want to call it, modernization. Again, we're always walking that fine line between trying to keep it a 32 Ford, but trying to have a modern engine or modern techniques, technology, whatever.
There you go.
It's always, okay, now we want to get, here's a great trick. Now go get the engine bolts, put a little bit of that chain lube on them, and let them stick up about a 1/16 of an inch. And what that does, if you put a little drop of chain lube down there, when we keep thinking we're going to do this in 2 seconds, I want to do this part of it with epoxy, and I don't want epoxy to get down into the blind nuts. So just put a little bit of that on the end of each bolt, and let them stick up. This is a tip worth its weight in gold. Oh, you know, there's a problem. Wait a minute. Don't even bother. Can't get the... I don't want to take the cowl off. But if you wanted to, you could take the cowl. See, I'm wrong. Okay, let's get little pieces of masking tape and just put them on top of that. That'll be a good... No, it's not going to be any good. Not going to be any good. See, we're trying to invent this. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, I don't want to take the cowling off, but if you wanted to, that would be another alternative. See, there's always more than one way to do these things. I want to just seal these holes, make a little drop of... yeah, masking tape is fine, just so the epoxy doesn't get down into the nut. That's good. What we decided to do, and again, we're trying to improvise as we go along, sharpen up a piece of brass tubing, cut some little circles, and what this I hope will do, hey, again, that word hope always comes into it, is I want to install this piece with epoxy, and so I want the epoxy to get around the ends of the edges of the nut and everything, but I don't want it to drip down in there. As an alternative to putting the bolts in with some chain lube, I think this will work. Oh, you got the filler block ready there?
Yeah.
What I want to to do, I've dimpled this. You press a little pen against it or grind it, however, so that there's a little puddle of epoxy on top of each one of the blind nuts when this goes in.
Don't want to get more epoxy than you need.
Well, you want to put the piece in and take it out and make sure you have it sealed.
Yeah.
This way with the tape there, you can go right over. Get some on a nose ring too if you can.
Don't want to have too much of this stuff going.
Yeah, you don't want to drool them down and sealing the cowling up.
Yeah. Let's test fit that.
Do a test fit, pull it out, and turn over. So just add a little epoxy. This is how you find the dry spots, and then we'll turn that over and press it in real good. Most of this is going to get ground away, but I want to have that joint, that there's plenty of glue in that joint, so when we start to do that taper, we don't have a big gap that we have to fill in. Yeah, it's starting to look nice.
It has no choice. Okay.
Now you want to see some epoxy oozing out all over the place. Then we'll dress this all off with a sanding block before we put the top piece on. But I think while that's drying, we can put all the formers in the body too. I'm always trying to, one of the things I'm always trying to do is while one operation is going, I'm trying to think what can I be doing on the next, so we don't get to a point where we're just sitting here watching epoxy dry. And that's the downfall of a lot of building programs, is you're waiting for something to dry and you'll just lose a lot of time. Wipe what oozes out with a little bit of alcohol. See, with a small spinner like this, you really do need that filler block. And press down on that once you get it done and see what else can ooze out of there.
Ah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
We can live with that.
Just hold that till the epoxy kicks off a little bit. If you wanted to, a good thing to do is get a hairdryer and warm that up now too. That'll let the epoxy get a better set. Now, no matter what kind of formers you use, or if you're making formers as you go, one of the things that I find the easiest way to do, this plane calls for an 1/8 inch tail post. So what it means is you want to come to the back of the plane while everything else is kicking off, and you want to have the tail post in and see what it does to the fuselage side. I want to show this, if I can do this. If you don't have it in straight, you build a body that looks like that or looks like that. Now in the olden days, I remember it was very desirable. Gene Schaefer and other people that I remember, Harold Price even, used to make a body with we called it a banana. But I want to build this straight. The plan looks perfectly straight to me anyway. I want to sight down there and just tack that. Now see, that's got to be adjusted just a tad that way to get it perfect. And then just put a drop of CA on that, and that should be perfect. And then we'll set the forms in. Okay, now the purpose of doing it this way, I've marked off, let's see where I put them in the fuselage. I marked off where all the formers go. But if we go to install the formers and they're a little sloppy, we can move them back 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch. If they're a little bit too big, you can shorten them, of course, but you want to keep that constant curve. You don't want to have a body that goes like this. You want the formers to fit the body, not the body to fit the formers, is what I'm trying to get at. Now you could also lay this body right on top of the plan and see that we have the right dimension, the dimension that they call for before we start carving blocks. The first thing is always have that. Let me look down this from this angle, Ken, too. And you can see that it's kind of in that dimension that it's. Now this would be an example. If you glue the first former in and all of a sudden it's like that, the next one is bowed, it's a problem. So now you can pretty much maintain that nice constant curve. We dropped the first one right in position. It was exactly perfect. How's it look? Each time you put one in, sight it and see that you don't have.
These are perfect.
Yeah, I think they're real accurate.
Now
And obviously you can go right to the plan if you want to and see that you're not making it thicker or thinner than it calls for. Does it look all right?
It looks perfect.
Let's go for the sight job. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, and I would suggest tack glue them all in first. President Nixon wants to put some formers in.
Yeah.
I bet that's John Brodak telling us we're getting a raise.
Yeah, it's Ho Chi Minh wants to put us back in jail.
That phone call was Brodak, and he said we can have extra pepperoni pizza for lunch today.
If we finish today.
If we finish the body and get the wing in the body by lunchtime.
Woo!
Somehow I don't think it's going to happen.
This is so much easier than the last Nobler I did. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Brodak,
this is going together well. Give Brodak all the credit and the bill for the pizza. All right, they're just dropping in, and just check after each one that you're not going to the banana plantation. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Hey, it's all right. Get used to sighting things. That's another key thing. Looks good?
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Okay, we got all these little nose blocks the way it shows on the plans, and I don't know how this is going to taper in. I'm looking at this and I'm wondering how much of this is going to get, almost everything is going to get tapered off. There'll probably just be a little sliver up here. Tack glued this on. It's right to the back of this former, and I just have it tacked on because I want to get, of course the next thing is Ken's working on laying out the ribs. I want to get this carved up and hollowed out, and then we pretty much can finalize the whole nose shape here.
We have our cowl shape finalized. We tack glued our top block on, shaped. We have this area that we're going to sand down into the spinner is glued on permanently. And we're going to work this over with a plane, with sandpaper, with who knows what, whatever we have to do. And we want to protect these fuselage sides. So we're going to put some masking tape in this area. So we take a piece of masking tape and lay it right down up against the block.
That'll just be a big saving if you happen to get the knife right on the very edge and go right through or whatever. You want to leave that, in other words, what you don't want to do is have this edge get paper thin. If this edge gets paper thin, you have no surface to glue it to when you put the block on permanently later on.
Ready to work.
Okay. Now it's always easier, I think, if you do one side of the block. How much you got done on this? Let me see the other side. Get one side and then use your hand to try to match it up to the other side. And up in the front here, we may be able to use a belt sander. Or you could carve it by hand. I'm trying to look and see just where this is going to end. Yeah, see, I hope we're not going to see this joint in the block. That's my only concern. I wish we would have had a longer block, but hey. What happens when you start doing things like that, the kit gets to be a $300 kit, so we'll see. And maybe if we do, any chance we're going to see these joints, we can either double tissue them or fiberglass the nose there. If you're working on this, small ice shavings, sneak up on it. Sneaking up on it is always the best way to do it. Keep eyeballing it. Let me look down the tail and see. Okay. Alright, now just try to work the same thing into the other side. And leave the front to last. It's always easy to get that part of it done. And leave the front for the last thing, and maybe we can even try that belt sander deal on there. Now what Kenny's trying to do here is finalize this block. Nice little sanding block, dress it all off. We're trying to work outside because it really is, hey, it really is a nice fall day. And it's a lot less dust even with that machine. The real fine dust I try to do outside. That dust can kill you.
Brings my asthma up.
Your Montezuma's revenge, huh?
I'll die for model airplanes, you know.
And just, now we're not really worried about it. Looks like this area here is getting a little thin. We can put a little spacer block in there. And don't worry about getting this contour perfect, because when we have these all done, what we'll do is put the motor in with the spinner on and then either build it up or get it sanded right from the spinner. But this is really rough, and it's really, actually, let me see the top. This is what I was worried was going to happen, is we're going to have a joint here, but hey, well, we'll bury that in fiberglass or something. I think that pretty well replicates, hold that up so we can see. It replicates the, yeah, it kind of looks like what it's supposed to look like.
I'll just imagine that zooming through the air.
Oh yeah, just imagine a judge giving you 15 for your takeoff or something. Okay, sand away, baby.
All right.
Sand away.
Back to work.
Get back to work.
Fish.
Okay, what Ken has done is made up some little patterns of the side view and the top view of that turtle deck. Now what I would do is leave it just a little bit oversized. Leave the pen line on even a little bit more than the pen line.
Oh yeah, when I made the paper pattern, I made it 1/16 oversize. And when I lay these on, I'll cut it so that I leave the ink lines on. That's pretty easy to do.
And to do this now, you could use a coping saw, but we just happen to have a nice big Delta saw, if you have one. Believe me when I tell you, this saw will take your finger right off. This is not a Dremel tool.
Yeah, we all know about our friend
So
No
get a
Finger
look at
Louie.
get a look at Ken. The last time you see Ken with 10 fingers.
I don't have to buy rings anymore. Well,
Yeah, that's a dangerous tool.
What's a pimp without rings, though?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Get ready to deep six all that jewelry.
Here we have the basic turtle deck outline.
Okay.
And it's interesting when you look at your plans, you'll see that what they have shown is actually 3 straight lines. Okay, so be careful with this rear angle, because later we're going to make the tail section and it has to fit.
Okay.
So
You'd like to cut the side view first, because then when you turn it over, you'll still have one flat surface to work off. If you cut the other dimension first, you'll be working off an angle. Shows you what I know, right? Okay. Cut away, baby. Let's see it. Count your fingers. You got the little 10 there? Always wear safety goggles. Yeah. Don't try this at home. You look like that woman on a home show hammering sheetrock. Come on.
oh no.
Yeah, see what we did, and it was my mistake even, is we had the lines on the bottom. Now that you've got the side view, we've got the side pattern, now we can lay the lines back out on the top. You've got all the dimensions.
And we'll leave plenty of meat. Don't want to make a
leave
mistake
plenty
now.
of meat, and then we need to get that little template. You made the template for the front already?
Yeah. With my saw cut here.
It's always better to leave the line on. When you're working with that saw, leave the line on. Okay, you're tracing out that front?
Yep.
And trace that on before we tack it on.
Line on this guy.
Now one choice you have here, you can put a piece of 1/8 inch tape right down the center. That always makes it easy to carve.
So that block is, and you have to be careful because it's very close.
Yeah, I'll just leave extra meat in the back. That's where it gets difficult to get the taper in. We want to get a piece of 1/8 inch tape down the center. And also, did he leave a template for what the top of this rudder shape should look like?
No.
There's no...
Well, we have a top
Yeah,
view.
okay.
We have a top view.
Take and just trace this, leave a 1/16 more, and transpose that up onto there. It'll always make carving a little easier when you have to do a symmetrical pieces. I try to get a center line on here with 1/8 inch tape. so that when I'm working up one side, I don't have an imaginary point, I have the tape. I'll also take a pen line and rub it on there just for the visual. And Ken's got to get that, before we start this, the back piece, because the rudder will have a curve only on one side. And if in doubt, any of these pieces, if in doubt, just leave a little extra material in there. It's always easier to carve a little more down than it is to replace it and put shims and things on there. That's the pattern, the top view. Ken, before you cut this, just run an ink line down each side of the tape. It'll just make it easier for you.
Okay.
When you start roughing that out, it makes it easier.
Now folks, when you're making these patterns, remember you make the pattern just a little bit oversized.
Yep, always, that's the magic word, is leave the ink line on. Make it a little bit bigger than it has to be. You'll always be safe if you make it a little bigger. And you get the back too. And then do the same thing with the tape. Run a piece of tape down there to give you a little safety net. You can let it go right over that tail cutout. We're not concerned with that right now. You notice how much he left plenty extra meat in the back to taper that right down.
So, we're ready to start carving.
Carve-o-matic.
Big blade.
Now with the tape to guide you, the tape at the top, it's kind of easy to get one side done first. Just the thinner you can make the shavings, the better you are. And you see you coming up on that tape, just quit. Nothing else you can do once you get to that tape.
I'd rather sand from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's all right.
This is coming in rough, and now you have to start with your hand. I can feel this side is a little more bowed out than this side. I can just take a few ice shavings off of this, and this will be ready to sand. It gets a little difficult to plot this, where you have to leave that. It's not symmetrical back there. I'm still trying to take advantage of a real nice fall day here, not have to breathe the dust in. Anytime you can sand outside, boy, is that a tip worth its weight in gold.
Well, take a look at this. This is
getting symmetrical. Reference off the tape. The tape is the main. Look down.
It's really close. It's not symmetrical in the rear, so it's hard.
No, it can't be symmetrical in the back. Yeah, that looks decent. All right, take the tape off and then just put the little radius in the front. Do the final little sanding, and then we'll go inside and start working on that bottom block.
Back inside. I think that'll be Christmas.
That's coming. Nice day anyway. Enjoy it while it lasts. This isn't California. Put the tape there, you can get those last couple of thousandths, just block it right in. There's a little bit of a, getting around the back here, just turn this up a second. It's a little bit, it has a kind of a funny curve there, not really, but I want to leave extra. Don't make it, you know, all real thin there until we get the rudder on. Then we'll blend the rudder and that right in.
Airfoil, it makes a real funny thing here.
Well, here's the whole trick, is to get the rudder on right now, because if we were to put this in the body and then put the rudder on and then try to sand this, you're gonna hit the elevators. You understand? Yeah. So let's the next
and
thing.
We'll probably want to, you know, come up through here.
Exactly,
and
come right up through there and hollow it out. Right. Just like making a cardinal, same way. Okay, so for right now, leave a little extra material there. Radius from where the fillet ends up to the front. Just get that blend in, so it doesn't look like a cardinal and come to a point.
No cardinals.
No cardinals.
Ah, look at that disappear.
Yeah, that's a nice trick, having that tape on there. That works well. When you're making like a cardinal and you need that point there, it's nice, but right now you want just a little bit of a radius. That's it. Just go right around, right around.
That starts to come in really fast.
Yeah, that's starting to come in. Sawing out the bottom block. Same way as we laid out the top one. Now because the side view of this, it tapers to almost nothing. I don't really want to try to make that cut. I was thinking of taking a ruler and just making a straight line, but I notice it does have a little bit of a curve to it. So I guess I can only oversize it with the ruler and then take, I guess, eyeball this back curve in to get that. It's a flowing curve. It's not really a straight line. I guess we'll be ready to start working on a rudder soon too. Okay, you got, and what we did is, from where the landing gear exit to about the high point of the wing, it's flat, but then it curves up. So we left a flat spot on and then ran a straight line here with leaving about 1/8 of an inch more material than we need, so I can blend that in finally. Now we'll have to get out the big saw, I think, to cut that off. And that you've got to cut real careful. If the saw grabs the grain, it's going to be a problem. That's going to be a difficult cut to make.
We have vertical sides, so.
Okay, you got a vertical side. As long as you're working off a vertical side, it's not laying one side or the other, you're safe.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay. Okay, what we had to do, had to improvise a little bit. Had to put 2 notches in here. Put that up so you can see how that works. Because that has to slide over. Now I was just thinking, because we didn't make the removable gear, but we certainly, if we make another one, we'll try to do that, and that's a good idea. Trace the front of that out, Ken. I want to try to carve or rough carve most of this front area before we tack it on, because otherwise I'm never going to be able to get a sanding block in there. So if I carve that first little part first and just leave the line on, then once that's carved, then we'll tack it on and just run right down the whole thing. That'll be the easiest way. Okay, you got the bottom block taped on, just tack it on. And we'll go over there and start radiusing it off. I also want to get that rudder. Where's the other piece of the rudder? Okay, you got them. We got to find that other little piece and start getting that shaped in. You want to make an Olympic out of this anyway, don't you? See, that's
too late.
The truth is, that's how Bob Gialdini invented the Olympic. He forgot to carve the back of the rudder, so he just made up those 2 little rudders.
Yeah, we'll send him a copy of the tape.
Ah, he's a good man.
He'll know how to do it next time.
Okay, that'll just save us a little bit of work doing it that way. And now I want to get the rest of this pretty much just the same way as the top. Run a piece of 1/8 inch tape right down the bottom. That'll make it easier to do the carving. Got the 1/8 inch tape over there? It's always easier to work toward a center line. And then put a pen line on both sides. That gives you that after you take the tape off, you still have a little reference for that last little radius.
Come on, Ken. Start thinking.
Drugs are everywhere. Right about now, I can hear John Brodak saying, "Fire these guys." Boy, this is your bet. We better edit this out. Nah, we don't edit anything out. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Even better. Look at this.
How's that?
Good. Now just put a pen line right down there.
I want to move it just a bit.
And side it. Side it to make sure you're in the middle. Okay.
I think that's really good.
Okay, press it down and get a pen line on there.
And I can prepare this.
You know, I always like about the halfway point here to take a look. See that it's coming in the right way. Looks pretty good. Ken's making up the last little piece here. Now, it may be that this piece is in a kit and we just didn't see it, but we have a piece of, we need to make that piece. And he roughed this out. We're going to have to put all the edges and things, but I want to get the airfoil in it first, so yeah, you got to block that into shape. Let's in fact, what we ought to do is make a complete template of this shape so we can trace it out, and then we have to make this little guy to put the ribs in. Okay.
Slave to quality work.
Now we're back out here trying to take advantage of what amounted to be a pretty nice day. Nice fall day, and not having to breathe all the sanding dust in is a big help. How's the bottom coming? Nice? Oh yeah.
We're in fish land here.
Yeah, the fish are getting balsa-itis. The fish are watching this plane and critiquing us. Anyway, it is pleasant out here, I'll say that for it. Starting to look like a nobler.
There isn't much more that this needs.
Well, the next thing we need is to frame up the rudder, and then we could do the final, that'll be maybe an hour or so of final sanding, and we can pop it all apart and hollow it.
Now, I've been fiddling around with a rudder, and the rudder's tricky, so think about it before you do it.
So, that means people with an average IQ will have no trouble at all.
Turn that thing.
You lose. You know what Ken did? He roughed this piece in, and this is just roughed out. He didn't even thin it out yet. But before I glue it in, I want to take as much of this material off as I can without dropping it, of course, so I can get. Well, I know I have the template here somewhere. I can get the bottom view of this, and this looks a little chunky in the front. Take some of this and get the whole airfoil in here before we make the cutout for the ribs. How's that coming, all right?
Great.
It's like a fire-breathing dragon out there. Get that taper in the back, real nice.
Oh, I got it.
Jerry Sipper's on the phone. He says, get that taper us nice.
Hey, listen, tell me you should have caught up with me 25, 30 years ago.
How'd that come out?
Pretty nice.
Oh yeah, that's real nice. I'd like to blend this a little more in here, just so we don't have to make a big fillet. You're getting that curve in there. Yeah, that's just nice. Real nice. Jerry Sipper would be proud.
So tomorrow we'll mark it and I'll do some more detail work and finish it.
Well, see, here's the other thing. You don't want to do a lot of detail till this is all put together permanently. Because these lines are all going to be once the tail is in. But you want to get as much done as possible right now. If you try to put that rudder on when there's, you know what I mean? And when a stab is in, you're banging into things and everything. See, this is important. You got this nice. That's nice. Got to make that little fillet in here, that little piece. And a good trick is, make this out of 16th plywood. Because everybody that launches the plane, they're going to have their big gawky watch and ring and everything on there.
I want to do that, so we'll make that out of plywood. But I also want to fill in with a little piece of balsa here to make a real nice little.
Yeah, we'll do that with Bondo. No, we do the fillets. Bondo is good, or I'll get that Aero Epoxy Light from Midgley.
But I think I got this.
See, you could take this. Here's another thing. This is kind of up in the air. You could carefully get a piece of paper on a dowel or a piece of tubing, because what'll hit, you'll wind up with a big chunk of material. I don't want to add any. The good thing, you know, we were talking about it before about adding weight to the tail of the plane. If you add an ounce up here or you don't sand well, not a problem. But if, say, from here back, you want this to be well sanded, as thin as possible. And I want to be able to, like when we hollow the blocks out, squeeze this and, oh yeah, I don't want to have it that it's like a rock. Because any weight we could save back there, that's a big saving. That's looking like a Nobler, Ken.
Well, it's lighter than that first thing I had already.
And you didn't even hollow the blocks.
I didn't hollow the blocks yet.
Oh, no, I think it's nice. I think it's going to be great.
It's great.
All right, let me finish cleaning up. We'll see you in the morning.
Yep.
Now this morning I got down to the shop a little before Ken got here. I was looking over some of the sanding he did yesterday, and I'm trying to make a recommendation here. Hey, what I'm suggesting maybe we'll do on future ones is make this block a little bit longer so that we don't have this joint here. This is just a cosmetic thing. Maybe what we'll do to overcome that is just glass the whole nose. I don't know if he sanded this too thin. I won't know until we get the spinner on there. But these little pieces inside, when we pull the blocks out to hollow them later, we want to make some little triangle pieces to support that. That's really getting paper thin. And maybe another alternative you would have is just not to taper the spinner as long. Maybe make it come up and then dive in a little more. Just looking at that, did a half decent job here. This has to be blended in better. And this looks like it's starting to take on the shape that they show on the plans. Just looking around it here before he gets here. He's a hard guy to get to come over on time. He's always a little bit late. Unlike me. Anyway, this side too, so I guess he did a decent job tapering that. See, now here's where I would like to have the landing gear, that you could take them off and then run a big block right down the whole fuselage in one shot. But when we married that up to the plans, it looked pretty accurate, so I guess that's going to be okay. Now, I guess you notice one thing. Every morning Ken brings one coffee.
One.
The word CB, meaning cheap, well, we won't say the word, has come into the equation. Anyway, once he warms up and has his coffee, what I want you to do is pull off all the blocks. We really can't do more sanding up here. I looked at this over and over again. And we really can't do more work around the fillet area until we get this off of the main fuselage and we decide how much we're going to hollow out of these blocks. Now, the choices are, and I've done it before, is I've made them really paper thin the way you can squeeze them, and then later on the dope shrinks. I want to try to leave roughly 1/8 of an inch of material in all the block areas, and maybe leave the first 6 inches of the nose solid. Hollowing this all out up here really isn't necessary. Planes almost always need some nose weight anyway. And then the bottom one we want to leave about 1/4 of an inch behind the gear solid, and then hollow the rest of it out, of course. So, all right, get a brand new razor, put a new blade in there when you're going to pull them apart, and really be careful. Try not to make the seam all ratty and ugly when you do it. Okay, now using a brand new blade, Ken popped all the blocks. And anytime you do, it always leaves little slivers of wood on here. So the first thing you want to do is get a nice fine sanding block and just dress this off so you have a nice flat surface. Because ultimately we're going to wind up using this surface when we glue this down to the table or put the wing in. A lot of times they'll take a little chunk. It's nothing to really worry about on the bottom blocks. Let me see the cowl. Even if you do have a little bit of chunks missing there, it's not a big deal. This came off real nice. How'd that come off? Okay. See, there's like little pieces here you really shouldn't give that too much concern, but you like to dress them off first before you go to the next step. Just touch that, just kiss it to get a nice smooth surface. Again, if we had this block coming all the way to the front, we would eliminate one joint. Just something to keep in mind if you're really looking for a professional pro stunt kind of finish. I think that would eliminate, that's one thing I could eliminate. Okay, just dress that off. Just enough, don't take any material, just dress it that it's nice and neat, and do the bottom too. Alright, now what Ken's doing here, we want to get just a line of reference for a hollowing operation. Now, hollowing these things out, there's a lot of good ways to do it. You can take, one of the ways to do it that's real easy, you can take these blades that X-Acto makes and you can just start carving them out. You can also use carbide bits. I have some on a table. In fact, I never use these because it's a little award that Scott Smith gave me and I didn't want to, I don't even remember why he gave me the award. Not quite sure I know about this. Oh yeah, it's Windy. You're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Actually, the truth is I made this award up for myself. No, really, it came from Scott Smith.
You made it.
But this would be an excellent tool to do the hollowing with, but I don't want to use these, but we have some used ones. I'll go get the old used ones out of there. What a show-off this guy is. Anyway, I always like to leave the corners round and up on the nose. Now we know this is getting real thin up by the nose and we're not really looking to make a big eggshell out of the nose, so what I want to do is just leave some extra material in there when we do the hollowing. Now you could do all the hollowing really with the Dremel tool, or you can do a lot of it with the knife. Either way, whichever way is more comfortable for you. You can see Kenny's leaving some material. He's got this one already done. Always good to leave the line on, and when it comes to hollowing, if you leave a little bit extra on, now when you turn it over you can sand it in. The problem with making it paper thin like an eggshell is when you glue this on, you can't true up the seams and then you start getting a shape that looks like what Jim Greenaway used to call the starving horse syndrome. And I even remember, the little bit I remember all the guys with the cool Noblers at one of the Nats. I don't remember who it was. They were arguing, oh, mine doesn't have ripples in the turtle deck. Ha ha ha. Anyway, we're not worried about that. Okay, even this piece here, this will be a little more difficult to hollow out in the back, but just give yourself a reference line to work off. It always makes it a little bit easier to do the hollowing operations. Okay, these are just some of the blades. These are all X-Actos, of course, or you can use those Excel blades. These are all, there's some real small ones, and I don't have one here. These are good for starting a hollowing operation, but when I get down to the last little bit, I either like to use sanding blocks or the Dremel tool on a slower speed. Okay, now luckily Ken has an XL knife right in his little toolkit, and so hey, John, we're going to use the XL knife. And by the way, we did have good success with these. They look like a pretty good copy, or pretty similar to the X-Actos, but anyway, let's see how this goes. It's always good. Another thing is of the complexity. Don't cut yourself.
Yeah.
Of the complexity, take the easiest one first. This is the easiest shape. This is the easiest shape to do.
Oh, we got a sharp blade.
Yeah, that's good. You see how sharp it is if you run off and hit yourself in the nose with it.
Well, we can glue it back on.
Not that I've ever done that. There you go. Now that's when that's cutting like that, you know, two things. You have nice straight grain soft wood and a sharp blade.
This is amazing for kit wood. This is really beautiful stuff.
If you're in doubt, take smaller pieces and take more of them. Try not to do it in big. When the grain is crooked and it locks in, that's when you have a problem. I want to see the first time he goes through it. He's going to say, "Oh no, erase that."
I've never gone through a block.
Yeah, me either. Honesty in video,
Real
boy.
experts don't do that.
You'd make a great politician. I think we're making this up, but Ken just walked over to me and he says, "The blade's getting dull already." And
Here I am.
He was using the wrong side of the blade.
Slaving away at
Oh,
this.
God. Rodak, fire this guy. We gotta fire somebody else. Unbelievable. Hey, he didn't have his coffee yet. Use that for him. He really didn't have his coffee yet. Always carve. This is a tip. This is a tip from your friendly modeler. Use this side of the blade where it's sharp. Don't use this side. A true statement. Now, while Kenny's over here trying to decide which end of the knife to use, I decided I'll start hollowing this one out. And I want to leave, most of all, leave some material back here around the gear because I ultimately want to try to keep oil from getting in there. I wouldn't want to hollow this right out to the front. And always leave a little bit, even if this was a, you know, the top block, a little material to act like a former, act like a little support there anyway. I also don't want to get it real hollow out in the back here because we got to cut a hole for the tail wheel wire. And I don't want to have that every time the wire goes through there, that hole gets bigger and bigger and more oil gets in there. I think you won the...
And this was done.
You cheated. You used the sharp edge of the knife. We don't want to see that in your magazine column. Okay, Kenny won the, I'll hollow it with the sharp edge of the knife block. You can see how much we've left here. But what I want to do, I want to take the ball end router, and what I do now is I just start putting scratches in side to side, side to side, side to side, side to side. This is my little technique for hollowing. Then when I'm all done, I try to find high spots, get rid of them, then turn the block the other way and put the scratches the other way. Again, go back and find the high spots, then turn it back this way, so that you're always putting little X's in there. And then when you're all done and you feel like you can sight through it, you can finish it off with a, you know, a little balsa block with some sandpaper on it. But to start with, I like to go side to side. All of the cuts go side to side. And this is one of my techniques for hollowing. What this is doing is leaving mountain ridges this way. When we go back on the second cut, we cut only the mountain ridges off. Then go back and put mountain ridges on, cut mountain ridges off. And it's a very quick way to get a block hollowed. The ball end also gives you some nice cuts in the corner. Like nice radius corners where there won't be a stress riser.
Okay, now we can go the other.
Now all you're doing on this cut is getting rid of mountain tops, back and forth. And as thin as you might want to make it, you just repeat cuts. All the cuts are this way, all the cuts are that way. Yeah, nice. The vacuum bench sucks all that stuff right up. Most of it, anyway. You can go through on an incandescent bulb and you can see the high spots. Now if you want to, you can go get an ink marker and just mark the high spots and then go and dress them off. Just holding it up to a light. I'll usually let you look right through until it's all kind of even. Pink. Now for the final shape, these are real handy to have, and they're called polywogs. They're used in body shop work. They're made out of hard rubber. You see, you can bend them. One has a perfect edge that comes to a point. That's real handy when you're using for fillets. This is handy for hollow and block. They come in sets. They're about $5 a set. And John might already have these for sale, and if he doesn't, he should, so get on it, baby. These are real nice sanding tools. They're called polywogs. And what you do with these is you take a piece of sandpaper, wrap it around it, and then this becomes your tool. Now, I've tried using these with sticky back paper. Not as good because you're wearing out the same piece of the sandpaper all the time, where what you can do is just keep moving your fingers and a new piece of sandpaper keeps appearing out on the edge. And that works good too. Of course, you have this shape. There's about, I don't have all of them here, believe me. They walk out of the shop like you can't believe. Everybody that tries one winds up putting it in their pocket. But they are handy. They come in sets, large, small. Really all you need is one or two, but a whole set is only $5 or whatever. Now once you use that one piece of sandpaper, just move it just a slight little bit, and now you have a whole new cutting edge. Isn't it nice that works?
This is fast.
I like to go side to side, then finish it up front to back any way you want. When you think it's getting down there, go out to the light, check it out. If you're in a daylight environment, you just hold it up to the sun. Just let the stuff go. Now you can see basically how this block is getting roughed out. We're already getting out the cuts. We're already into the dremeling part of it. Out there sanding away, trying to keep the dust down in the house. And we're both working simultaneously on trying to get these blocks hollowed out so we can move on to building away. Okay, got one block. This nose block is completely ready, I would guess, and there's enough meat here that when we do the final sanding in, should be fine. Now, let's see, the cowl, what'd you do? Start roughing out the cowl?
I roughed out the bottom and the sides of the cowl.
Okay, so and usually it's easier to get most of this done with a ball end mill. Don't even worry about that. We can hog that out. How about the other guy?
Well,
now, this guy, this is ready. This is going to need a big 26 blade in the back. That's going to be a little different. Okay, and what about the other one? That one's ready to do the...
This one's ready to
okay,
sand.
take that one outside and do a final sanding. Let's see how this worked out, if you can see up to the light. You can't really. I'm sure it doesn't show up on camera.
The sun. It's really even.
I don't like to point the camera at the sun's.
Well.
Your eyes you can replace, but my camera I can't replace. Some logic, huh? All right, sand that one, I'll start working. Now just some thoughts on getting up in here. It's difficult to get up in here with a knife, a blade, even a cutter. Again, that's why I like to use the ball end mill. The carbide ball end mill on a slow speed. If you can control it, get right up in there. It makes for some nice cutting. Now while Kenny's outside sanding, I can grind a lot of this off. And again, the carbide ball end mill just goes right into it. Same as doing a top block, I try to get all the cuts going in one direction and just go back and knock off the mountaintop. I bet right now you're glad you don't have a dental appointment or something later today. Hey Kenny, the only thing left to do here is thin this out. Take the sanding block outside, do that outside. This looks like it'll be fine.
And we're ready to go.
Take care of that and I'll start working on this block.
Okay.
And get these done. This really does take a little more time. You always underestimate the amount of time you need to do this, but it does take time. This one is probably the most difficult one, but hey, we'll use some different cutters in the Dremel to get up in there as far as we can. Now we gotta try to take as much as we could out with the knife. Ken already did that. But getting back here, I'm going to try to use some thinner, the little Dremel bits that are about 1/8 inch in diameter. Just looking at this, I'm trying to see something. Not used to looking at a rudder that's asymmetrical.
Handling that one real easy.
Yeah, this one I guess we could candle. Oh yeah, you can see right through it, it's so thin. But Kenny got a little carried away here. Anyway, it looks real nice. But what we want to do, whenever you have glue seams like this and you're working from end grain to lengthwise grain, you never really can get rid of that seam. The seam is always going to be hard. So to make a nice transition on this, because we really do want this to be perfect, we're going to take some old CA. Take the old CA that you don't really want to use for glue anymore and just pour a little dot of it on there, wipe it with a paper towel, and get the paper towel off before it kicks. Don't use new CA, use old CA. So in effect what we'll have is, let's see if you can see this, I did one little test spot, you'll have a coating of CA on everything. Then I'm going to have Kenny take it outside, sand it down, and of course some of the raw wood spots where it's uneven will come through. And then we'll repeat that step 2 or 3 times until in effect we have a real smooth finish and the same density on the outer shell as all the glue seams. Then we can do a perfect sanding job, and that'll be ready for a real nice final sanding. CA, we had, in fact, it's so old we had to take a pair of pliers and cut the top off.
I use this all the time myself, and it's a neat trick. You just keep your...
Just wax it right in. Now you gotta, as soon as you feel it starting to kick, yeah,
You have to stop right
Great
there.
student you are. Lady's not running a car wash.
I do the same thing.
You know, at the end of the day, you got to debonder your hands anyway. But do a little spot. What happens, the reason it kicks fast like this is we're picking up some dust. Take a small amount. The faster you rub it in, the better it is. And just keep, there's President Nixon.
There you go.
Let me go see what Nixon has to say. All right, get a coat on the whole thing while I answer the phone.
You bet.
Okay, get it. You got a coat on there yet?
Pretty close.
All right. Man, don't waste it. That stuff's valuable when it gets that old. He's out there sanding. I got most of this out with the big drum, the big carbide piece, but this is the part that's hard to get, is out in the back. Right down in the back there. So what I've been doing, I have my little, I always keep a coffee can full of the little bits, a coffee can, and I've been trying all the little different cutters. Actually, this is the one that looks like it works the best so far. Just to get down in that area, and I guess the last little bit I'll have to get out with a sanding block. Okay, this is the one that wound up being the most efficient when I was hollowing out the last little bit. And of course it's all rough. Now what I want to do, I want to take one of the polywogs. I'll do this outside because I really don't want to be breathing too much of this dust in here. And this pointy end of the polywog will be real handy for getting in there, then I can turn it around and get the rest done up there. Handy, these tools are real handy. How's the great American cowl sanding coming? Hey, this is ready.
1865, slavery ended.
No, it didn't. Not in Jersey. All right, this piece, you can figure out what has to be done here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You got to get this end of the polywog, Ken, get right into the back, and you really spend most of your time in the back, but we'll feel how light that came out. Most of the heavy stuff is out of there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Just do the last little bit, and I think you'll have that under control. Actually, it's pretty nice working out here today. It was cold this morning, though.
Yeah, and the sun just went in.
Yeah.
It's getting a little cloudy. But we're going to run out of this good weather soon.
I know.
You people out.
Now what I'm trying to do, I want to put a coat of glass on here. I want to put a coat of fiberglass. This is SIG, half-ounce cloth. Just have a scrap piece, in fact. And always, whenever I'm doing any kind of fiberglass work, I like to use the epoxy where one tube is twice the size of the other. The reason for getting this on here now, this is really getting to be thin, and that'll let us get the last little bit of hollowing out. And then when we cut all the little holes and hatches and bolts, this will be a nice hard shell on there. Now, one of the things you always have a problem with this type of a thing, how do you hold it? Well, it just happens, it sits in one of my priority tape things, and that'll give me some way of holding it while I can work on it. Now while Kenny's working on that fuselage, I can get this drying. Actually, I want to get it outside drying. But it's nice if you can mix right on the piece. Saves you just a little bit of effort to do it this way. The nice part about the epoxy where one tube is twice the size of the other, it never really hardens up to glass. It always stays kind of in a soft state. And it always, at least to me, seemed like the dope finish would stick to it relatively well, relative to all the other finishing resins that I've tried. But the first thing is, of course, these nice little trowels work well too. Get a coat of epoxy on this. You're making up those little nose pieces?
You bet.
Oh man, we're going to be in good shape by lunchtime. Actually, what happens here is when you try to save weight in the nose of the plane, guaranteed you're going to need nose weight. If you wind up making a cowling paper thin, it's almost a guarantee that you'll wind up with an ounce or two of nose weight. If you make the cowl a reasonable thickness and make it durable, now see another thought, we fly over grass almost virtually all the time except for the gnats. And what happens when a plane noses over in grass, you wind up chewing this front part of the cowling, this type of a cowling. And that's one of the reasons on the Seafires and Spitfires I've evolved that type of cowling where the motor takes the abuse instead of the cowling. Or an Aries type cowling, it's just impractical to have a cowling that won't take the test of time. Kenny, I need your finger here for 1 second, just stop what you're doing. Just press down so that's sitting up in midair. It doesn't have to be too fancy at this point. Just lay this on. You don't even have to trim it. Just let it droop down and we'll keep working it out. Pull out as many of the wrinkles as you can. Pull that back if you can.
This is one of the jobs where it's good to have a helper.
Yeah, hey, made a committee decision thinking about the wingtips last night, and I wanted to make the wingtips out of blocks just to make putting a lead-out guide in and the tip weight box easier. Looking at the all those little ribs, even though that would be the more nostalgic way to do it, it's just not practical. Not for where we're flying. All right, let me just I'll get the hair dryer and get some. Yeah, I see it. Just start from the middle and work toward the edges. And wipe it on a newspaper if you have to. There you go. The hair dryer makes it liquid. If you're using a hair dryer and you see a bubble, you know you're making it too hot. It should be the consistency of water when you're finished. There you go. Just wipe right on there. I forgot the paper on there. Okay, now it's lucky we got this out of the room to dry. The stuff laid out pretty nice. The hair dryer is the trick. You get it to the station, get to the heat level of having it that it just flows like water. If you see air bubbles, you know you're getting it a little too hot. And tomorrow we can work on that, sand it out, and you know, Ken's making up these little pieces because we are getting the fuselage real thin there, and they're just for cosmetic. Make sure they're a nice tight fit in the corner. It'll just keep us from like 10 flights into it, you get a broken prop and all of a sudden there's a crack there. You might be able to get away with not having them there, but cheap insurance.
Just for the thought about this, wood fits are of real importance. They add strength and you don't need so much glue. And you very often, when you've glued something, like in this corner we have glue, you have to relieve the edge of the piece that you're putting in there. Make a little space there.
Good point.
Then when you drop that piece in, seamless fit right away.
Yeah. Get those nice fits where it looks like it's one piece of wood. Okay, now you just want to dress them off nice and straight.
And I'll dress them off after I glue them in.
Okay, Ken's got that part pretty well, I guess, lopped out. Now what we want to do, in fact, before we do that, I spent a little bit of time blending this joint in. And now there's a thing you're going to run into here. There's an asymmetrical curve, and I like to make this little tiny piece here out of a piece of 16th plywood. Again, I say, because people do launch the plane, it's the first thing takes a beating. I also then want to take a little bit of polyester resin, Bondo, I don't like to use epoxylate, and flare this in. Now this side is kind of easy. If you look at this joint up close, this joint blends right in. It's not a problem. But if you do have a problem, what you want to do is soak both sides of this out about 1/4 of an inch with thin CA, wipe it with a paper towel. Same thing here, but you want to get that reverse curve in there. If you don't have that, it kind of looks like, oh gee, I don't know, you know? One of the little detail things, and we really got this hollowed out real nice. You can even see where that's going to flare right in. Alright, we'll do that. You give me this pattern now. Let's put the pattern on the rudder. Now keep in mind, what's the object of doing? The object of doing this is, if you cut this out and put the ribs in and everything first, and then try to go sand it in here, you better be ready to really be a good craftsman. This way kind of makes it easy. You're sanding all solid wood, get the joint to where you're happy with it, and then cut that out. I think that's the most reasonable way to do it. So just trace that on there, and then you'll have to get the plans and lay out the ribs. I know they had the rib layout on the plans too. But that body really looks nice. It's going to be nice. Now what we're going to do, just for our own purposes, is leave a little bit of extra material around the edge. I'm making it just a little thicker because we already have the airfoil in there and it's getting thin. A little extra material there, it won't be a problem at all. This part is so nice and light. It's this thing better not need tail weight. All right, you want to cut that out on a Dremel saw?
Yep, that's the next thing. Let's put a hole in it.
And the reason for this is we want to have the matching radius that we have on the stab. Don't want to have any sharp corners. Gets rid of a stress riser too, so we kind of got a matching part here. Now that gives us all the radiuses. Now, when we put this on the Dremel saw, I want to hold this up off the ground. I don't want to have this get all chewed up. Hey, you made a nice little heart there.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, you just gotta eyeball it and hold it up square. Yeah, it's going to be a nice fuselage. Very, very good. Oh, boy. Address that all off. Yeah, when you go to do the finishing, having those little radiuses in it will save you an awful lot of work. When you get those little wrinkles in the corner of the tissue jobs, oh. Okay, getting the ribs in there?
Just one more rib to get in, and then I can block sand them.
Yeah, then do the airfoil deal. Then when you're done, I want you to make this little radius in here. Copy this off the plan. Make it out of 16th plywood. Put a radius on the front, and then I'll put a little Bondo in there, and that'll give you something to... You're going to take this down to club meeting Friday and show it off, huh?
Oh, you bet.
Ah, all right. Hey, maybe you ought to take the video camera down and shoot some video.
Guy at the, what, of everyone oohing and ahhing?
No, Sabatino will probably squeeze the body and break it or something. Anyway.
Probably steal it. Okay, I like that.
Now, just to show you how much a person can get immersed in nobler technology, this is from Jack Bryan. I asked him on the phone the other day, please send me some photos of you playing. We're doing a nobler video, and I'm sure even John Brodak would like to add to his collection of nostalgic videos here. So Jack sent these. Anyway, these are business cards made by Stephen Hogue. Well, Steve, you know, where's Wendy's videos with some nice things? Hey. Anyway, he sent these. And this is a green box Nobler. It's not a Brodak Nobler, but I'm sure just by looking at them you can get the flavor of pretty much what we're doing here. And everything starts to look real similar, you know. Here's Kenny working on a rudder, you know. Anyway, we're planning on doing some photos of this project also, possibly for a little article for Stunt News or whatever. But boy, this brings back a lot of memories. Now, one of the things I want to do is I want to have solid wingtips, because I remember, even from being a kid, always trying to buff out those little spots in between the ribs was always a pain. And it won't really change the flavor of the plane. In fact, the Cipras and Solhavies in them, they all had block tips anyway. You can get a little idea. Here he is using the Windy method, and he's used the Windy method on the assembly, which you're going to see. We're going to do exactly this real soon. Copied this right off the video. I think Jack has the biggest collection of Windy videos in the world, except for Windy. And he's put them to good use. Hey, just check this out. He's got one side of the sheeting on. Now, of course, a green box Nobler has sheeting. We had the block. And there's a lot of, there's a point here. There's a lot of variations in Noblers if you look back. From one Nobler to the other, to the, obviously, the Gieske Nobler, and a lot of variations. But anyway, I really appreciate that Jack loaned us these. Kind of inspirational. We're going to be doing this pretty soon. In fact, Ken's got a couple of pilots that look like they won't fit. They look like, actually like they're Godzilla size or something. But we're going to try to improvise. And if you see how this comes along, hey, it's just one of those things. You like to watch it take shape. It's always fun. Ah, next picture, next picture. Oh, yeah, I know what that feels like. Yeah. Now, my construction stuff, I always put the wing and tail in silver. At least I always have. Nice air venting. Aluminum tube around a glow plug. He's using a Big Jim Max. Again, it looks like he made the cowl a little smaller here. And I guess that's what's cool about Noblers, is no two are exactly alike, but they all have the same flavor. He's got the adjustable lead outs there. You always have that flavor. Nice shot at a cowl. I wonder if he fiberglassed it. Hey, we really don't know. Looks like he's using a pin in the back to center it. That's another choice you have. It's got the internal web for the bolt hold down, some little pins here, that's a good thing. Much bigger intake hole than the plans show. But again, you still have the flavor. There's the flavor of the Nobler. It's got the Cipra type Kind-Sylhavian Cipra had the little gear doors, gear legs. Of course, here it is all in silver, and this is when it starts really getting fun. Turn it into aluminum plane. Oh, I can't wait to get to this point on ours. Did a nice replication of the trim job of my original video Nobler. Really nice. Top level workmanship and craftsmanship. Boy, if you knew, that brought tears to my eyes just seeing that guy. I remember the first time I brought that down to the field, they shut the contest down so everybody could come over and look at it. It was really a lot of fun. Now, he made a front box to take. See, everybody is into the same thing of how do you get the tank out. Everybody's improvising a different way. In fact, I talked to Larry Drawn the other day, and the guys that are building Noblers down there are trying to figure out how to do this, so I figured it'd be a good thing to share this. This would be one of the things to share. This would be a good article for Stunt News. Maybe we can get John Brodak to write that up. Some of the various ways of making a removable tank. Boy, tell me that isn't a thing of beauty. Now it looks like he even made a little half-A Nobler here or something. Is that what that is, a half-A? Ah, you're breaking my heart, Jack. You're just breaking my heart, looking at these pictures. That is absolutely a thing of beauty. I think he even used the Windy Candy Apple paint method. I don't know. Why steal the credit from him? And there's a photo of Jack and the Nobler. Congratulations, that is a thing of beauty for all time. Thanks a lot to Jack. Jack Bryan, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now this is the key little part that, to me, this is one of the little details. We're always talking about details. Is having this little piece in here. Now we're going to mix up some polyester resin, which I guess generically is known as Bondo, and make that little fillet. When that fillet in there is a perfect flow from this dimension to that, it really looks nice. And when it isn't, boy, does it look terrible. And I made plenty of them that look terrible, I know firsthand.
But that's a plywood piece.
A little plywood piece. Don't make it out of balsa wood. The first time somebody launches the plane, you have a ring mark in, especially if it's Mike Rogers. All right, just clean up the table. I'll mix up some of the resin. Now, the first thing you want to do before you do anything that requires any polyester resin, Bondo, or whatever. Now, we really should be doing this outside because my wife is allergic to this, but for the sake of getting a nice clear camera angle, I'm going to do this once inside the house. Mix it up real good. The oil, or what will look like one of the chemical components, seems to float to the top. So before you do anything, stir it up real well. That's trick one. Trick two is use the minimum amount of hardener. You only need a couple of drops of this into a spoonful, and it's not real critical. Polyester resin is not critical to the hardener resin ratio. Then we want to mix a little puddle of it up and just take a little bit of it on the end of the trowel and make that fillet. The minimum amount, the minimum. Once it's mixed up good, just take one, maybe a spoonful is all you need. Now, the reason I don't like to use epoxylite is I never seem to get it to the consistency I want. I'm not good at using epoxylite. Maybe other people are, but this material, a can of this is about $5 in a local body shop. I think even if you buy it commercially, it's cheap. Put 1 drop of that hardener in there, 2 drops. Always squeeze the hardener, always do this. Just like the resin, it tends to get mushy. Squeeze that all up. Enough. That's going to kick off in 1 second. Plenty. Enough. The ratio is not ultra critical. Now mix that real fast and you got probably 2 minutes of working time. Mix it thoroughly. When you think it's mixed enough, mix it some more. Now this will go to cheese. If you're not familiar with working with Bondo, if you weren't a kid in the 50s and you did your own body work, it's going to go to cheese probably in 2 to 5 minutes, and you'll still have a little bit of time to work with it. But as soon as you feel it starting to harden up, it starts to gel, and you feel it getting warm, you're basically done. Go mix another batch. Okay, get that yellow trowel, that little thing from Sig. Just put some on the very tip. You're only going to need just the slightest little bit of that. Trowel it right in there. And obviously if you put too much, you're going to have to sand it out. And it's relatively easy to sand, but it's better if you don't have to sand it at all. Just make a nice little fillet out of it. There you go. It makes real nice fillets. I've seen many people use this to make the fillets on planes. Now what we're going to try to do is, over the course of doing this project, use several different materials just to see which ones are going to be appropriate. Like for filleting, I've made hot stuff fillets. Oh, let's see, aeropoxy fillets, Bondo fillets, solid wood fillets. Then they all bubble. That's the truth. But anyway, we'll try a couple of different materials just for test's sake, or so that we can demonstrate that on the course of doing the tape. Now you could probably use your finger. Well, what you can do is, right, you can do it in several thin layers. You can do it with your finger or with a prop blade. Right there, a 13/6 rev up would probably be perfect. If you don't get it right, you sand it in, and if you still have a low spot, mix another batch. This stuff is very inexpensive. The only thing, it does have a kind of a ratty smell. It's just generic polyester resin. That's all that is. Bondo.
I think that's a little low, but that's a start.
But that's
so we'll
okay.
that
now get this side.
for the time being.
While you're at it, there was that one divot in the wood I saw. You can just put a little squatch
You
of
mean
that.
that one divot in the wood you made?
We don't talk about that. But you can just put a little in there. I'd rather have this than spackle, because the dope really doesn't like to stick to spackle. That's the problem. See, if you have a little wood divot like that, this will stick. The other advantage of this is you put this out in the sun, and in 5 minutes you can be sanding it. If you have sun will kick this off so fast. And if you need 2 coats, just come back and put another coat on. And if you see this is taking more than about 5 to 7 minutes to kick off, next time you mix a batch, you'll mix it with a little more hard. Now let's see if this went to cheese yet. Nope, you can still move this. So as long as you can move it, keep moving it. But at some point it's going to go and then
that's when you stop.
You can even feel the heat coming off of there when it gets hot. Well, no, then you just leave it, and the rest you do with sandpaper. Go to cheese yet?
Going.
Okay. Even then, you can still just smear it. Sometimes when you have a little divot, a razor blade works nice to push that down into the material. But the little plastic trowels always seem to work well.
In fact, it's a little better in the cheese state.
Well, we're at the end of the 4th day. This is the 4th day that we've been working on this. We got about an hour left, and we're going to start making up the jig that's going to help us to build a nice straight wing, which will be on the next tape. This basically is 4 days work, and I think it's going to be well within the weight range. So far we have not had to replace any of the wood, and so far everything has gone together, I guess, even better than I could ever expect a kit to go together. If I remember right, years ago, even building old green box Nobles, there was always some of the things that just didn't fit and you had to trim them and whatever. This one is really above average, and give John Brodak all the credit in the world for getting this put together, and George Aldrich for what has to be. If there is a better design in the history of the stunt event, I don't know what it is. More of these have been built, I think. I don't even know what's in second place, and we hope to see you on the next tape. We've had a great time, and we're sitting out here sunning ourselves on a rock like lizards. See you on the next tape. Thanks to Jack Bryan for sharing all those photos with us. And I hope, I hope you're getting something out of this tape that'll make your building of a Nobler kit a lot of fun and a lot more rewarding. And hope to see you at the Nats too. Thanks for joining us.